Welcome back. The Union for the Mediterranean is a dream nurtured by France and pushed forward by President Sarkozy, who's desperately in need of a diplomatic victory. Sarkozy is suffering from a drop in his approval ratings with the French people and must be hoping that some of his foreign policy schemes can help reverse that. He currently heads the EU and, of course, he would like his presidency to achieve a lot in the short time he has. For example, his vision for the Middle East peace process was seen as daring and very hard to sell to Israeli politicians. Sarkozy called for Jerusalem to become a dual capital for Israel and the proposed Palestinian state. And now this vigorous pursuit of a union for the Mediterranean is seen by many as a hasty attempt to create this body without bearing in mind the thorny obstacles. Others think the union is mainly designed to boost Sarkozy's goal of cleaning up France's relations with its former colonies and building closer ties with Israel. Well, we're joined again by our guests. In Barcelona, Ignasi Guardans, in Nice, Saad Dejabbar, and in Berlin, Isabel Schäfer. Isabel Schäfer, I could just start with you. Does this union need to have specific projects in order to work?
Well, the idea is to especially invest in the sector of energy security and civil protection, also in the education sector and in transport. So these are very concrete fields, and it's very useful to start, in fact, from the bottom up with concrete projects which can be visible for citizens in both shores of the Mediterranean. But what is lacking in this whole initiative completely is the whole dimension of civil society integration and democratization issues. So that was one of the major failures of the Barcelona process. And if this time we do not take care of this dimension, then I don't see how it will work in the long term.
Saad Dejabbar, what do you think of that it needs to have a civil society element as well?
You know, let me just comment on your previous speaker from Barcelona when he mentioned several items like fighting terrorism, the environmental issues, the illegal immigration. All these issues have been dealt with within the other frameworks which exist either within the Barcelona or at the bilateral level, or 5+5 between some southern Mediterranean countries and the European Union. So I think this is a repetition of something which has no substance. This is recognized by the Germans. That's why the Germans amended the whole project in order to say, yes, we accept it. And the British too, other Northern Europeans, no one is taking this matter seriously. And when you come to the peace process, all other efforts, either those led by the Americans, and the only people who count in terms of the peace process who could put any pressure are the Americans. They are not the French. The Palestinian-Israeli issue, it is the Americans who can affect the process. So Sarkozy is exaggerating his own role, and I honestly think this is a photo call opportunity for the Mediterranean, southern Mediterranean leaders who have most of them have no legitimacy in their own countries. They haven't got any political projects to present to their own people, and for the European Union countries, they are just wanted to say we are with Sarkozy until further notice.
Okay, let me stop you there. Let me bring in
a serious project.
Okay, let me bring in Ignasi Guardans just on 2 points. That this is just a PR exercise, according to Saad Dejabbar, and that also it repeats a lot of things that are done by other organisations, and for instance, the EU. How do you stop this just becoming a glorified talking shop?
Well, by doing exactly what our speaker from Cannes was saying, which is to work bottom up. I mean, if this is about huge politics and the future and the peace and whatever, indeed it could have the risk of becoming a photo call, a pure PR exercise. If you start talking about education and you put in communication people involved in transport, or you really go to the roots of illegal immigration, or you work on environment, or you work on sea pollution and so on, you really deal with the issues, and indeed you open to civil society and you bring in civil society, well, this will not be something just managed by the leaders. This will really something that puts together in a forum that does not exist. Whatever our colleague from Berlin is saying, with all my respect, he himself contradicts a little bit in his own speech. He's right. Many of these things are done by many different instruments. We lack one single instrument, one single forum in which we can do this. I understand all the risks, and I agree this could not work. I'm not saying this is going to work. It can go badly. It can just be perfectly ineffective, as the Barcelona process partially was. But it can be a very necessary instrument.
Isabel Schäfer,
your other question was...
Is the Barcelona process dead in that case? Is the Barcelona process dead?
No. That's
because
I think that's exactly the difference between Sarkozy's
there is no
idea.
contradiction.
Can I answer that? Can I answer that? The original Sarkozy proposal.
Ignacio,
Well, the original Sarkozy proposal. No, can I answer that in a second?
Yes, do.
The original Sarkozy proposal was precisely what our colleague is saying. The Barcelona process is dead. Here is something new from the scratch. And what we have today is not that. The European Union forced Mr. Sarkozy, politically forced Mr. Sarkozy to say that's not true. The Union for the Mediterranean is just a renovated process for Barcelona. In fact, the name of the thing, you're calling it Union for the Mediterranean, I understand it in colloquial terms. The official name of the thing is Union for the Mediterranean, full stop, process of Barcelona. That's the name of the thing. The European Commission is going to follow it, not the French civil servants or the French Foreign Affairs Ministry. It's the European Commission who has already prepared the paper. It's the European administration, of course, on the European part. And then all the other governments.
Could I bring in Isabel Schäfer? Do you think that's a good idea? I mean, the fact that effectively the European Union has taken this over, is that going to mean that it's more effective or less? I mean, some would argue that if they didn't work out the Barcelona process, why on earth would they be able to sort out this?
No, I think it's a very good thing that the European Union took over the project, and that especially Germany forced, in fact, the whole initiative back into the European framework, because France, in fact, as a single member state, cannot do very much for the Mediterranean, and there was no budget foreseen for any Mediterranean Union initiative. So, in fact, Sarkozy pursued a very unilateral initiative, but hoping that afterwards the EU would pay for this. And I think if the EU is paying for the whole initiative, then the EU should also decide on the framework and structures. And at the same time, the Barcelona process did have many mistakes and failures, but it also had some results and some achievements. So I think it's a very good idea to build up on the structures which are already there, and then to improve them and to deepen them and to get some new dynamics from France. This is very useful. But the whole
Saad, if I could bring back in Saad Djabbar, do you think there is a rationale for having for tackling political issues specifically? And we talked earlier about the business of having to make progress on concrete projects like roads and so on. But if they don't tackle the political issues, is that going to help or hinder the situation?
This is the issue. The Barcelona process, in its origins, stated at first that they wanted to deal with the southern Mediterranean countries, and one of the things required was good governance. In other words, democratization, political and economic reforms. Then they conceded, they withdrew, with the help of France, by the way, because when you look at the origins of the Barcelona process, one of the fundamental principles of it was to help or to push and force those states which are dictatorial, which have no accountable governments, to move more towards democratization. They have capitulated on that. Now, the problem with the Barcelona and why it failed, because it was a state-to-state government partnerships. It did not address the issues. You talk about civil society. Civil society, they gave some money to some associations here and there, but they didn't do the trick. The real problem, including with Sarkozy problem, is that they accept the regimes of the South, especially those dictatorial regimes, as they are. They brought them to the high table as they are. And there is no word about good governance, respect for human rights, the rule of law, fighting bribes and corruption and so on.
Let me just
they are dealing with them. And to bring Israel, one issue, if you wanted to have a bi-presidential structure where you have one president from Europe, one president from the South, what about if Israel tomorrow becomes or want to become president of this union? No, we'll accept it. That's why Libya have rejected, when they looked at it, they have rejected the whole idea.
I'm afraid we've run out of time. So on that note, we have to leave it. But we thank our guests in Barcelona, Ignacio Guardans, in Nice, Saad Djabbar, and in Berlin, Isabel Schäfer. Thank you all very much indeed for your time. And thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. We always welcome your comments and suggestions. Do please email them to us. InsideStory@aljazeera.net is the address. Bye for now.